reminders. Mobile phones and other electronic devices switch to silent, please. We are expecting a fire drill this morning. That's at 11 a.m. I've been told it won't last long. So if anyone is speaking at that time, just hold fire until the drill is over. Could council advise on location of bathrooms? I believe they're just down the corridor. Yeah, so ladies through this corridor and gents around the corner. I aim to break for lunch around between 12 and 1 with breaks mid-morning and mid-afternoon. Today, we will have opportunity for interested parties to comment in the morning, and then we will hear evidence from the Residents' Alliance witness and then the appellant's transport witness in the afternoon. Are there any other procedural or housekeeping matters anyone wishes to raise at this point? No. Thank you. I did notice when I last looked, the inquiry documents were not all uploaded to the website. So IDs 1 to 4, the opening submissions. Do we know anything about that? The 4 opening submissions from the main parties.
It might have been very early this morning, ma'am.
Pardon? Okay.
I think they are. I'll double check online though. I've been told they were.
Okay, thank you. Yeah. And I have said that I will allow written comments from interested parties until 5 p.m. on Friday. When they come in, could they also be uploaded to the website and recorded as IDs 5.1, 5.2, and so on? So if anyone does want to speak today, for the purposes of live streaming, we do all need to use our mics. So you will need to be at a table with a microphone and you'll need to press the speak button when you want to speak. Okay, so are there any interested parties who would like to make any comments today? We'll start on my left there, gentleman in the blue shirt. Could I have your name, please?
Good morning, thank you. I'm District and Town Councillor Tim Johnson from Royston.
Johnson, J-O...
H-N-S-O-N.
Thank you. Thank you, go ahead.
Thank you very much, Madam, for this opportunity to speak this morning.
So before you start, are you okay to answer any questions?
Yes.
From myself or the main party?
Yes, absolutely, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you.
Sorry, continue.
Unfortunately, I couldn't be here yesterday, but I'm one of Councillor Barnes' colleagues for the Meridian Ward in Royston, and I know Councillor Barnes spoke yesterday. I'll do my very best not to duplicate anything he said. Additionally, in addition to me being the district councillor for the ward that this development is proposed for, I actually sit on the town council and was re-elected last Thursday. So I do have, after 14 and a half years living in the town, and 2 separate hats, if you like, quite a bit of local knowledge about this location. I spoke against this application at the original planning meeting and on a number of occasions at town council level. I'd just like to say, in semi-retirement, I actually work part-time at the local secondary school. And on the wall of the geography department, there's an aerial shot of Royston taken a few years ago. And one can actually see the patchwork development of Royston. And on the very basic face of it, this field where the development is proposed at the top of Barkway Road would seem a naturally suitable extension to the town, sitting as it does right on the edge of Royston. In fact, one can see on this aerial picture where a more recent development has gone on the edge of the town. But this, Madam, is a simplistic, in my opinion, ill-considered view when looking at the problems around this site, particularly the wholly unsuitable access via Barkway Road, due to what amounts to the single carriageway, one direction at a time nature of the road, due to the legally parked cars outside very long established Victorian terraced houses. In simple terms, again, putting up to 280 houses at the top of this road will, please believe me, as a long-term resident, as I've said, cause absolute traffic chaos, gridlock at peak times, and additionally, a real danger to pedestrians. I say this as, like others, I regularly, 3 or 4 times a week, drive up and down this road, and I've seen on many, many occasions frustrated, some might say impatient, motorists manoeuvring onto the pavement to beat the congested cars just by the road layout. Someone, in my opinion, will be seriously injured or worse if this development goes ahead. I'm not suggesting for 1 minute that there's going to be a lot of Formula One drivers moving into the development, but the fact is most of the dwellers and in their vehicles who leave that site will be turning left to go down Barkway Road to the A10 gyratory system. Of course, no doubt there'll be a few turning right that might want to shoot through the country to join the A505 towards Duxford. But the majority, believe me, will turn left and cause absolute gridlock at peak times. This development, for this reason alone, in my view, is not tenable. Before I close, madam, I don't intend to speak too long, but I'd just like to comment on something that I think was brought up yesterday. I have had a chance to review yesterday. I sit on the town council, as I said, and I believe there was some sort of verbal agreement in 2023 to work with the developer over Green Walk. I'm sure that exists if that's been said, but the fact remains there is no written or recorded, minuted, I believe, record of this. But in any case, having been on the town council for a year, as I say, being re-elected last Thursday, and my party with a huge majority, there's no chance that we would, now we've reviewed this in detail, support the development of Green Walk. It's inappropriate. In the winter, it would need lighting, and we wouldn't approve that for this part of the development. Madam, I intend to stop now very shortly, but I'd just like to say, my view is, as I said at the original planning meeting, this is a speculative application. It's outside the well thought out local plan. We've already got in my ward, and quite rightly, actually, because it's got proper access, 300 houses coming in what's known as colloquially burlows. There has been no proper traffic survey completed on Barkway Road. I'm absolutely nonplussed as to why this hasn't happened. As I said at the meeting, where elected members of the planning committee of this council rejected the plan, it is just plain wrong. I strongly urge you to uphold that decision and stop this development. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Councillor. Anyone else? Yes.
Good morning. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Works? Good. Okay.
You tell me your name and whether you're okay with being questioned.
Sure. My name is Richard Jameson. I'm a local resident.
Say that again, slowly.
My name is Richard Jameson, spelt like the Irish whiskey. Okay. I'm a local resident, and I support the refusal made by North Herts District Council. I'm happy to receive questions from you, Mum.
Okay.
Okay. So I have 4 key reasons to support the refusal. These are around sustainability, highway safety and congestion, environmental assessment and consistency of treatment of this application. I wasn't here yesterday, unfortunately, so I may repeat something that was said yesterday, but I will try and move on quickly through these. So starting with sustainability, the site's topography presents a 1 in 10 gradient in places, which is an obvious material physical barrier to walking and cycling. And just to expand on some evidence yesterday, I watched some of the reporting yesterday regarding the distances that were quoted as 1 kilometre to the town centre. That is true. It's 1 kilometre to town centre. However, the town's major amenities are considerably beyond this. From the top of the site, the railway station is 2.6 kilometres away. The large retail outlets 3.7 kilometres away, the Tesco supermarket 3.4 kilometres away, the leisure centre 3.4 kilometres away, and the secondary school 3.2 kilometres away. All are well beyond the developer's own stated maximum walking distance in their application. It was also suggested yesterday that other parts of the existing settlement have similar distances to the town centre. Well, that might be true of the town centre itself, but is not true of these major amenities, which sit on the north side, far north side of the town, well outside the town centre, where this site sits on the far south end of the town. So residents here will face a longer total journey to those destinations than residents elsewhere in the town. The developer's original transport documents assumed cycling journey times based on average speeds of 30 kilometres an hour on a 1 in 10 gradient, a figure that is plainly unrealistic. This assumption was only revised down after residents challenged it, and even the revised figure remains questionable given the gradient. So the cycle times are underestimated and also include trips to the town centre. No survey evidence or mode share data has been produced to demonstrate that sustainable travel to those destinations is genuinely achievable or likely for prospective residents. And on a point that was made yesterday, I think this is critical, it is not whether the residents can walk or cycle, or that a few may already do from surrounding developments. It's actually if they will. That needs to be assessed. And given the gradient, the distances and the practical demands of daily life, that question has not been answered. This is a gap the developer could readily have addressed by reference to travel patterns to comparable nearby sites, but chose not to do it. I respectfully ask the inspector, when she visits the site, which I think is next week, to consider whether on one of the frequent mornings of inclement weather, if a commuter would walk to the station and back in the evening after a long day, if parents would be happy their children walk the 3 kilometres to the school and back, whether a family would realistically walk or cycle to Aldi or wait for an infrequent bus, or would the practicalities of daily life and time pressures of daily life mean they would simply reach for the car keys? All logic points clearly to the latter on this, and no evidence has been produced to suggest otherwise. Now, moving to highway safety and congestion. Hertfordshire County Council recommended refusal of the site in 2021, citing doubts over possible implications for highway safety and sustainability. Highway subsequently reversed that position in 24 or 25. This despite the topography being unchanged, the road network being unchanged, the distances to the amenities being unchanged, and the single-file nature of Barkway Road remaining unchanged. And as far as I've been able to establish, no revised technical assessment was presented to support the change of this position, and no additional evidence was requested by the developer, from the developer. I submitted a Freedom of Information request to Hertfordshire County Council seeking correspondence with the developer that might explain this reversal. The council declined to release it, citing Regulation 12.5D of the Environmental Information Regulations on the grounds that this public inquiry is underway. A justification, if you look at that ruling, that doesn't seem to be engaged by that provision, as this is not a formal process. The correspondence is not a formal process. And this inquiry is precisely the forum where the merits of this application should be tested. I tend to appeal that decision to the Information Commissioner. Unfortunately, despite the original request being made in February, in time for the information to be available for this hearing, the Council's response only arrived last week after my repeated chasing. The result is that a potentially material piece of evidence is absent from the record before this inquiry, and the inspector is invited to note that absence. Now, moving to cumulative traffic impacts. Highways have already acknowledged their existing congestion on the B1039. The developer's own transport statement identifies 198 additional vehicle movements at peak times, which I suggest is an underestimate with 280 houses. but 98% of that will move onto the directed single file section of Barkway Road. Adding 198 vehicles to that road that already experience severe peak time congestion will make congestion worse. It's obvious. This is not a contested proposition, it's a straightforward consequence. A micro-simulation model was proposed at the deferral stage precisely to provide an objective assessment of this impact. The developer, despite being given the opportunity to do it, chose not to do it. It begs the question, why? The significance of that gap is compounded by the Highways Officer's own description of the severity assessment as a subjective assessment at the October committee hearing. This is precisely why objective modelling was sought. It means its absence means the inspector is being asked to improve a development without an objective assessment of its traffic impact on an already congested road. Now, Mum, 460 residents have submitted objections to this site. The majority have referenced the congestion. These are consistent, independent observations from people who use this road every day. I've personally observed these queues exceeding more than a kilometre from both on Barkway Road and the A10 on a number of occasions. While this does not constitute a formal traffic count, the volume and the consistency of these observations from residents who experience this daily is material evidence the inspector is entitled to weigh. It should also be noted that through the process, the developer has continued to claim that a pedestrian crossing on the A10 will improve the traffic flows on the A10. This claim was directly refuted by Highways and raised at the planning meetings, yet it's one that has continued to appear in updated submissions being raised at the planning meeting by the developer. This calls into question the reliability of the developer's evidence base more broadly. Also, I think no consideration has been made to construction traffic. And the impact this will have on Barkway Road. The existing pinch points on Barkway Road already allow only 1 or 2 cars to pass at a time. Once 3 vehicles enter the section where cars are parked on both sides, gridlock follows, with vehicles, as already mentioned, mounting the pavements. Adding large construction vehicles and a high volume construction traffic to this will have inevitably a severe impact on traffic flow. This impact has not been assessed. Now I'd like to move to a really important point around pedestrian safety. Highways officers themselves have accepted there is anecdotal evidence of vehicles mounting the pavement on Barkway Road to pass oncoming traffic. Now remember, 98% of the additional traffic from this development will be going down that route at the same time, because it's peak times, that children will be allegedly walking to school. Now there are a number of photographs that show this mounting of pavements on community websites posted by residents raising this concern, which I'd be happy to make available to the inspector. The risk this creates has not formally been investigated, and the developer has not been required to assess it. A stated reason that I heard was that an engineering solution does not exist. This is not a reason to disregard the risk. It's a reason to weigh it against the development under the MPPF. Where a known safety risk cannot be engineered out, the illogical consequence under the MPPF paragraph 115 is that it counts against the proposal. MPPF paragraph 115 requires that safe and sustainable access can be achieved for all users. The developer has not demonstrated this condition is met. I'd also like to move on to an environmental assessment. As people know, this site is 45 acres of agricultural greenland on the designated rural area beyond the Greenbelt. It directly adjoins a greenwalk plantation and established woodland wildlife habitat managed by Royston Town Council, who have strongly objected to this proposal. And I won't repeat what Councillor Johnson said earlier. But this does, but I can't find anywhere in the evidence base that a full environmental assessment is completed at the site. And I think it's a rare one, because especially considering its location close within a kilometre of the site of special scientific interest. So I think that's one of the questions for you, Mum, is to whether that should have been done. Now I'd like to move to the inconsistency of reviews. So there's a comparable site on Echo Hill in Royston that has similar topographical constraints and has to this site and has been recommended for refusal by Highways within the last 2 months on grounds including gradient, accessibility for all residents and distance to bus stops. and specifically because it failed to demonstrate a satisfactory approach to accessibility contrary to LTP 4 policies 5 and 6 and the MPPF. The Barkway Road site has a similar gradient and comparable access difficulties, and the bus stop access is no better, and in one respect considerably worse. The only way for residents on this site, on the western site, to catch a bus to the town centre is to walk to the bus station in the town centre. The inconsistency in treatment between these two sites has not been explained, and the inspector is invited to weigh that accordingly. So in conclusion, the original refusal decision was right. The transport assessment is incomplete in material aspects, despite the developer being given opportunities to address this by the planning committee. The sustainability of the site has not been adequately demonstrated. The highway safety concerns raised by the Statutory Highway Authority in 2021 have not been resolved. They've been set aside without documented justification. A full environmental impact analysis I don't think has been completed, notwithstanding the clear environmental sensitivities of the site and its surroundings, and the inconsistency between how this site and Echo Hill have been treated has not been explained. And a number of process questions. The cumulative effect of these gaps is that the inspector has before her an incomplete evidence base on which this approval cannot safely rest. And I respectfully urge the inspector to uphold the refusal of this application. Thank you.
Thank you. I don't have any questions. We are running a little behind time. However, if there's anyone else, could you, you could keep it brief. I am allowing time also tomorrow morning and Friday morning if you have anything else. But go ahead. Could I take your name first, please? W-I-N-S. And would you be happy to answer any questions from myself or the appellants? Yep. Thank you. Go ahead, Mr. Wiggins.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you.
I'll keep this very, very brief because lots of things have already been covered. I'd like to give thanks for yesterday to explain to us that everyone is possible to walk or ride a bike or catch a bus. But in my experience, people with cars rarely do any of these. The elephant in the room is that the traffic problems on Barkway Road, and a bus will only help to make things even worse. There's an alternative route right out to Barley and round to Flint Cross. Flint Cross is an accident black spot that has had several fatalities, and the police have advised to avoid if possible. And lastly, if looking for a model of a house on top of a steep hill, then Belden Road is a fine example. I've lived there 38 years. I've seldom seen anyone walking up or down it, and I've never in 38 years seen a cyclist up there. And I'll leave it at that because the rest has been covered as the traffic. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Williams. Anyone else? Yes. Yes, any microphone is fine. The speak button and a little red light should come on. There we go. Thank you. Could I take your name and whether you'd be okay with answering questions from myself or the appellant?
Sorry. My name's Yvonne Lee, which
Wait,
is
could you say that again?
Yvonne Lee, L-E-E.
Thank you.
And yes, I am prepared to take questions.
Yeah.
I'm here today in my capacity as chair of Barley Parish Council, and also reflecting the comments made yesterday, excuse me, in the opening session, representing not only Barley, but also Barkway and Reed Parish Councils. We all object to the proposed development, which is the subject of this inquiry. We share common concerns and have come together in the interests of efficiency and to save inquiry time. The inquiry has already heard comments and concerns from residents in Royston, but we want to draw attention to another dimension, the impact on surrounding villages. We consider the location of the site renders it unsuitable for development of the size and density proposed. We consider it to be unsustainable and harmful whilst being contrary to local plan policy. By way of context, Barley, Barkway and Reed are all located within 4 miles of the proposed development. located to the south and east of the site, with respective populations of 703, 849, 343 residents, according to the 2021 census. We are extremely concerned at the cumulative impact of this development on the existing infrastructure. Despite the submission of various amendments to the scheme by the appellant, the concerns of our villagers have been disregarded. We acknowledge that NHDC does not have a recognised 5-year housing land supply, and so the tilted test in the NPPF should be considered. However, the crux of the issue must be the balance between harm and benefit. We can see no evidence that a satisfactory analysis, including the cumulative impact on our villages, has been undertaken. We are in no doubt that our rural villages will experience significant adverse impact from this proposed development. In particular, highways, which will have ramifications far beyond the immediate environs of the site, making the development unsustainable and harmful. The cumulative impact of the scheme on the highway infrastructure has at best been downplayed, at worst ignored. The subject area identified for the highway analysis does not extend as far as Barley, Barkway or Reed, ignoring the impact on our environment and meaning the infamous A505 junction at Flint Cross and the rural route of the A10 south of Royston have been totally ignored. There are existing well-documented traffic issues in all 3 villages: traffic volumes, excessive speed, heavy vehicles, and a considerable increase in recent years of traffic using our minor village and country roads to access the M11, the A505 and the A10, avoiding the congestion in Royston. Our village roads are simply not designed to safely accommodate current traffic volumes. For example, Hertfordshire County Council is currently considering a 20-mile-per-hour zone for Barley, and the Parish Council has recently commissioned a highway study to review what mitigation measures could be put in place to improve safety through the village. Over the last 3 years, Barley has seen an average of over 480,000 vehicles travelling through the village per annum, an average of 42,600 vehicles per month. We operate speed cameras in the village, and these figures have been extrapolated from the data collected. Unfortunately, no such data is available for Barkway or Reed. It is also relevant to this appeal proposal that a site known as BK3 in Barkway has been granted planning consent for the development of some 140 dwellings. The cumulative impact of this scheme must surely be considered in any analysis for the Barkway Road site. The only proposed vehicular access for the development is to be from the B1039 Barkway Road, where there are already, and we've heard plenty of comments thus far, concerning speed and volume of traffic. The highway study assumes the vast majority of vehicles exiting the site will turn left into Royston. We consider this to be wholly unrealistic. Currently, the gyratory system in Barkway Street, Priory Lane A10 struggles to cope with the existing levels of traffic and is frequently gridlocked. Barkway Road itself is extremely constrained due to on-street parking, reducing sections of it to a single carriageway. It is reasonable to assume that traffic wishing to access the A10 or the 505 will choose to turn right out of the proposed scheme towards Barley, Barkway and Reed to access the A10 and the 505 at Flint Cross. This will put an unacceptable burden on the local road network beyond Royston into the neighbouring villages, causing unacceptable levels of traffic and increased levels of noise and air pollution. The traffic assessment was revised and updated by the appellant, but the analysis still discounts traffic impacts outside Royston and ignores planned and proposed development outside the Royston envelope. No regard whatsoever has been given to the impact of increased traffic flows into Royston from the surrounding villages. The very flawed assumption is made that most of the traffic coming from this proposed development would turn left into Royston and not right. But why? It defies all logic and it's totally unrealistic. We see no evidence that the appellant has considered where new residents are likely to be employed. Surely this should inform their traffic analysis. It is highly unlikely that all new residents will work in Royston. A substantial proportion will work in Cambridge and its environs, the various biomedical campuses and the expanding business parks located to the south of the city, with additional ones already in the pipeline. And also, of course, many will go to London. If you work, for example, at the Wellcome Genome campus in Hingston and put in directions to our well-known vehicle, Google, that directs you from the site through Barley and up to the A505, or directly through Barley on the B1039. None of the routes offered go through Royston. Equally, Whittlesford Parkway and Alderley End stations offer a far better direct service into Liverpool Street than King's Cross Line at Royston. And again, Google identifies the route being through Barley as the best one. All of this would result in traffic turning right out of the development, not left as the appellant continues to assume. The A505 B1368 junction at Flint Cross is under considerable stress, and this will increase with the Granta Park development, the expansion of the Genome Complex, and further planned schemes at Sawston and Duxford. These may all be out of county, but they should not be ignored. The cumulative impact of these schemes, plus the proposed residential schemes in Royston and Barkway, must be considered in their totality to be able to properly assess the impact on the highway infrastructure. Barley Parish Council tried to engage with Duncan Enright of Evidence-Based Networks, who were PR consultants retained by the appellant. We requested a meeting to discuss our concerns and the potential impact on Barley. Our comments were dismissed and a meeting was not forthcoming. Indeed, Mr. Enright claimed that routes into Barley, Barkway and Reed for the development are not, and I quote, viable routes according to their modelling and analysis. The reality of human behaviour is often substantially different to hypothetical models. For example, the operation of a green building is a point in case. Even the best designed BREEAM Gold building can fail to perform once it's occupied by real people. We understand in the draft 106 agreement mitigation measures have been agreed for the gyratory system and other junctions within Royston, but no consideration has been given to the impact of the villages and the rural network and what measures could be undertaken there. The entire focus is blinkered on Royston and ignores the cumulative impact on the surrounding rural area. We are pleased to note at paragraph 6.4 of the Council Statement of Case that it concludes that the adverse impacts of the scheme would significantly and demonstrably outweigh the benefits, and that it does not benefit from the presumption in favour of development. We welcome this conclusion, despite the fact that the impact on the surrounding villages still has not been recognised or acknowledged, with the proposal failing to properly consider traffic displacement into surrounding villages, the cumulative impact of multiple housing developments, and the safety and capacity of the rural road network. The practical realities have been ignored by the appellant, but will have direct impacts on Barley, Barkway and Reed. The adverse impact on surrounding areas must be acknowledged in the tilted balance test and addressed. The scheme may bring advantages to Royston, but this must not be at the expense of neighbouring communities. This is not a sustainable development proposal. Traffic is a major concern. The surrounding villages should not be sacrificed in the blind pursuit of housing numbers. There must be a comprehensive assessment of the impact of this scheme and mitigation measures put in place to negate the negative impacts. We urge all agencies involved to take an integrated, joined-up approach, ensuring the correct infrastructure is in place to provide truly sustainable developments that positively contribute to the area, rather than pursuing harmful and unsustainable development severely impacting on the quality of life for existing residents. Until this is done, we urge that the appeal is dismissed. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who wanted to contribute? Okay. In that case, we will proceed to examination in chief. I will give Mr. Semakula, Mr. Hayder a couple minutes to set up.
Ma'am, while Mr. Hayder's getting set up, I can usefully use this time to confirm I've identified the wayward ID numbers. They are situated within the core docs in various places. So I will draft an email to those instructing me to get them on the ID folder in the core documents, ma'am. Sorry about that.
Thank you.
Good morning, Mr. Hayder.
Morning.
You are the founding director of Pulsar Transport Planning,
I am.
and you have over 32 years of experience as a traffic and transport planning specialist.
That's correct.
You're a fellow of the Chartered Institution of Highways and Transportation, which is the highest position that can be attained within this professional body.
That's correct. Yeah.
And you also hold a bachelor's degree in civil engineering and a master's degree in transportation planning and engineering. Yes.
Yes, that's correct.
You've produced a proof, a rebuttal proof, and also provided an addendum to this inquiry. Let's start first. Do you have any corrections you wish to make to your proof?
I think it was more for the rebuttal.
So let's.
I know you're right. Yes, it's table 6.1
So table 6.1 of your
my
proof, which is on page 40.
I'm
That's
sorry
right.
to, I'm ever so sorry to interrupt. Mention just being made of an addendum. I'm just a bit concerned. I don't think I've seen an addendum from Mr. Hayder.
Apologies, I should be clear. There was a proof produced, a rebuttal produced, and then the addendum simply is comprised of all of those guidance and policy documents that he was asked to produce in one full addendum document. So that was sent last week to everybody. So it's not an additional rebuttal. It's not an additional piece of evidence. Yes, indeed.
Yes.
Apologies for
Yes, these are the ones that I didn't want to mess up the core documents list, and so I'd asked for it to be produced separately.
For the purpose of his evidence, we just got the proof from the rebuttal, so it'll be clear there. So Mr. Hayder, we're talking about corrections. So we're on table 6.1 of your proof, which is on page 40. What do you wish to correct there?
So this relates to journey time survey results along Barkway Road. There's a sort of arithmetic discrepancy So for the time periods from 7:30 through to 1600, there are various times in the columns 2 and 3. So for example, 7:30 to 800 northwest bound, there's a delay, maximum observed delay of 1 minute 29 recorded. That should be 1:27. And for that row up to the 14:30 to 1600 rows, those numbers should be decreased by 2 seconds.
Sorry, could you just say that again, that last bit?
Yeah, sure. So for the rows from 7:30 down to 1600, so 7:30 to 8, 8 to 8:30, down to 14:30 to 1600, the figures should be reduced by 2 seconds.
Could you, just so we get it right, could you read out all of those?
Adam, if it may assist, we actually have an updated table 6.1, which sets out the updated figures. So
Yes,
reduction
that
by
would
2
be
seconds,
helpful.
which will hand
You
up
got
to
copies
everyone
for
now.
everyone. Thank you. This will be ID6.
So that deals with table 6.1. Is there anything else you wish to clarify?
In Appendix D of my proof, Appendix D deals with snapshot traffic survey images. And there are 3 pages. The first 2 are snapshots of traffic survey images that are included in the appellant's transport reports that was submitted to the council. The third is a separate image which isn't from their traffic survey images, and it relates to an instance where a vehicle mounts the curb or mounts the footway on Barkway Road.
And where is it from?
It's an image that has been provided by a resident.
Thank you. So let's start first with sustainability. Mr. Hader, can you start by helping the inspector to understand how far residents of the proposed development would have to walk to each everyday amenities in Royston?
Yes, sure. So I think this is set out in my table 1, table 4.1 and table 4.2 of my proof. And there's a list of facilities within Royston.
So that's page 16 of your
Page
proof.
16. And table 4.1 sets out walk distances from phase 1, which is the eastern parcel, and phase 2, the western parcel. And from phase 1, so table 4.1 is walk distances using the Barkway Road route. And there is one facility or amenity, which is the first school, which is 780 meters. And then various amenities that go from 1 kilometer up to 3 kilometers. So for example, the high street we've measured as 1.1 kilometer from a centroid or a middle point within phase 1. But the railway station we've measured as 2.1 kilometers, Tesco Extra 3 kilometers. And then the last column on table 4.1 relates to walking distances from phase 2 using Barkway Road. And those distances range from 1 kilometer to 3.4 kilometers. Then I was going to go on to table 4.2.
Yes.
Where it sets out walk distances using an A10 route. This is with the assumption that people would use Shrubbery Grove link and that it was deliverable. There are a couple where we've said that's not applicable because no one would choose to walk that route because those amenities are to the east. And again, there's a range of distances going up to 2.8 kilometers to the Tesco Extra.
So what difference does this Shrubbery Grove link being in place make?
I think by and large, and this is from phase 2
Yes.
as well. So I think if you're in phase 1, you wouldn't necessarily use it for the majority of those facilities. It would reduce some of the distances by a short amount.
And you mentioned this 800-meter threshold. Why does that matter?
It's accepted guidance that 800 meters is a reasonable walk distance to the majority of amenities set out in providing for journeys on foot, which is a CIHT document that's mentioned in Mr. Frisby's proof and in the transport assessment, and that's sort of considered a good walking distance or a reasonable walking distance to a range of amenities.
And have you referred to any other guidance?
Yes, we have. So there is a CIHT 2015 guidance called Planning for Walking.
Yes.
And that provides similar advice. It talks about walkable neighborhoods involving a walk distance of 800 meters.
So turning now to gradients, specifically on Barkway Road, can you explain to the inspector how the gradients in your evidence on Barkway Road, how that was measured?
Yes, so a mapping company, a GIS mapping company, was instructed. They looked at available data which sourced or which referred to sort of levels and topography, and they referred to that data when looking at a route from the 8 gyratory up to the site along Barkway Road, and they split that up into, I think, 8 sections. So I believe that is in my proof in Appendix A.
Yes.
That's right. So they've provided a plan showing the points that they've plotted, and they've included an elevation and a distance. They've split that up into 8 sections, and there's a table which sets out the gradients for each of those sections.
And so what did that survey show in terms of the overall change in level and the average gradient here on Barkway Road?
Yeah, so for those 8 sections, the total length was 774.6 meters, so 775 roughly, and the elevation change was 43.68. and the average gradient they've put down as 6%. I think they've rounded that up, but it's over 5.6% from the A10 gyratory up to the site. And there are sections within that where the gradient is 10%. So for example, on that table, point ID 3, the
Yep.
section between 2 and 3, that distance is 140 meters, and the gradient along that section is 10%.
And what about if we look at gradients on the A10 route?
Yes, so the mapping company didn't provide any, weren't instructed to look at that, but we have used the Google tool to split that route into different sections, and I think that's part of our Appendix B.
Yep.
And it's also summarized in my proof, table 2.1, I believe. And again, we've split that up into different sections and set out the distances for each of those sections, the level change and the gradient. And for the section along the A10, that gradient varies between 2.3% to 7%. And we've also added in that table the proposed cycle link for the Shrubbery Grove link that's proposed, and using plans that have been prepared by the appellant, we've calculated that the gradient for that element would be an average of 9%.
Mhm.
And when you look at that route and you look at the incline sections of them, which is all but one, the average gradient would be 5.8%.
So sticking then with the Shrubbery Grove link, you've seen the planning condition that relates to that link.
Yes, I have, yes.
Can you explain its current form and your concern with it?
Yes, so when you provide a sustainable link, you want people to be using it from day one. You want those travel behaviors to be embedded from an early stage. And so I would expect that link to be in and implemented prior to occupation of the first unit. But the way that the condition has been drafted, it sort of allows for a design to be prepared, sort of generally at pre-commencement level, and then at first occupation a timescale for delivery. But doesn't seem to be any commitment or any fixed timescale currently for the implementation of that link. So they could be, it's uncertain how many units would be occupied before it was implemented.
And what do you say is the problem with that?
Well, those residents wouldn't have access to that link, notwithstanding the suitability of that link, but assuming that it was attractive, they wouldn't have access to it in the first instance. And therefore their sort of travel behavior wouldn't be there from day one. They would be used to not using it, potentially using the car because they didn't have access to a good sustainable link.
And you mentioned notwithstanding the suitability of that link. Is there anything you wanted to say about the suitability of that link?
Yeah, I mean, so in terms of the average gradient, we've worked out that it's roughly 9%.
Yeah.
There is a design that's been put forward, which includes steps, includes a chicane, has gravel surfacing, it's unlit. And these are all elements that are contrary to good design, good cycle design, with reference to LTN 120. They aren't inclusive. So again, if you look at guidance in the DFT inclusive mobility document that talks about average gradients, or sorry, maximum gradients of 5% or absolute maximums of 8% for very short lengths, this goes beyond that and therefore wouldn't be, in my view, an inclusive or attractive route.
And we'll come back to inclusive mobility shortly. Just to close out the various routes. What about the Grange Bottom route? What do you say the deficiencies are there?
So again, my understanding is the Grange Bottom route is unlit and not particularly attractive, particularly at certain times of the day or certain seasons. I haven't seen any mention of how that's going to be maintained. It's a wooden structure. It can become slippery. There's a lot of vegetation around. But I'm also concerned about the gradient of that of the boardwalk. My understanding is that it's roughly 38 meters in length, and the gradient or the change in elevation is over 6 meters. So that represents a gradient of about 17%, so 1 in 6, which again is contrary to LTN 120, albeit it's not I don't think it's been designed as a cycle route, but it goes beyond and is contrary to best practice and guidance in inclusive mobility. It is also a bridle way, or at least my understanding is that public right of way is a bridle way. So it should be designed for cyclists, or at least in theory it could be. And the width of it is not in keeping with LTN 120.
So drawing all of this together then, would either of those routes or any of the routes described be a suitable access for the mobility impaired?
Not in my view.
We've spoken a little bit about this, about cycling, but just getting into this detail a little bit more. You've heard the evidence given about the ability of residents to cycle up these hills. I mean, what do you say about that, about how realistic it is that the residents will be cycling up these hills?
So LTN 120 provides guidance on cycle routes and cycle infrastructure. And its purpose is to make sure that routes and infrastructure is attractive, encourages people to cycle. And it's quite clear that when you have gradients that are in excess of 5% for short periods or even longer periods, people either won't be encouraged to cycle those gradients. It won't be an attractive route, and in places as the gradient is reaching 10%, it will put off, discourage a high proportion of people. There will be a few who will do it, but they will be the exception rather than.
And do the routes provide flat sections to rest as the guidance contemplates?
No, that's right. So LTM 120 talks about certain maximum gradients and then suggests that there are flat sections for cyclists to rest, and both routes are a consistent, continual incline or decline in depending on the direction. So there aren't those rest sections. It's either constantly uphill or constantly downhill.
And just to be clear, has the appellant accepted that an LTN 120 compliant route can't be provided?
that's mentioned in their documents, and I believe it's in their proof as well, that an LTM 120 compliant scheme cannot be delivered for Shrubbery Grove.
Yeah. Moving on to public transport. What's your assessment of bus service availability at the site?
So I think it's been agreed that there are 7 buses per day along Barkway Road, and I think at weekends it might be low as 5 per day, and that's very infrequent. That's not a regular bus service. So in my view, in my opinion, that's an infrequent level of service. It's not one that you would want to rely on. There may be some people who take it, but it certainly wouldn't be attractive enough for lots of people, or a significant number of people, to be using that service on a regular basis. There are also gaps during sort of peak commuting times. So people relying to try to get to the station or coming back from Royston station, there'll be a significant number that just wouldn't have that service available to them.
And is there any commitment in the application to improve those bus frequencies?
I think there's wording to the effect of, where possible, bus frequencies might be improved, but no commitment. I mean, this goes to the sort of vision of the site as well. So if you've got a vision-led scheme where you're talking about being inclusive, improving cycling, encouraging people to walk or take public transport, really I would expect to see some commitment or some assessment of the frequencies that would be required to encourage people to take the bus. And it's non-committal and very vague at the moment.
And finally on this, I mean, what do you say about accessibility to trains from the site?
So I think we've spoken earlier that the walk distances are in excess of 2 kilometers. That is quite a distance to walk there and back each day if you wanted to, for example, if you're using it for commuting purposes, bearing in mind that on the other side, once you've taken the train, you'll probably have to walk at least some distance. So I don't think it's an attractive proposition for many people. There may be some people who do it, but it's not just the walk distance, it's the gradients as well.
Yeah.
So 800 plus meters of that 2.1 or 2.4 kilometers, depending on the route, is either a substantial downhill or a steep uphill walk. So not particularly attractive, and would discourage people from walking to the station.
Great. Okay, let's talk a little bit now about highway safety. If we look at the proposed site access there on Barkway Road, can you explain to the inspector how the design speed visibility displays was derived?
Yes. So an automatic traffic count, which measured speeds, was installed on Barkway Road.
Yes.
That was installed to the north of the site access. I think actually the reference in the data, which we only received a few days ago, mentions it was 180 meters south of Shaftesbury Way, which I think puts it towards the edge of the site frontage, sort of northern edge of or northwestern edge of the site frontage. And speeds were measured in the northbound and southbound direction.
Yes.
my understanding is, well, actually looking at the data, the southbound speeds were measured at 40, the 85th percentile was measured at 46.2 miles per hour. And the northbound speed was from that location was measured at 42.7 miles per hour.
Yes.
I believe. And so when you're looking at measuring visibility displays from a site access, you want to understand the speeds from both directions. So you want to be able to understand what the speed is for vehicles approaching one direction and what the speed is approaching the site access from the other direction. But as only one ATC has been implemented, you're getting the speeds in the southbound direction, but the northbound speed is irrelevant for the site access and for the purposes of measuring the visibility, measuring or calculating the visibility display for drivers wanting to look in the other direction. And actually, if what they should have done is put, or what standard practice would be to put another ATC or measure the speeds further south, take the northbound speed from that to calculate the visibility display in that direction. And that hasn't been done. And so in the absence of that, you would revert to the speed limit, which is 60 miles per hour. And the visibility display requirement for that speed is 215 meters. So that's what you should be assessing in that direction.
And what do you say is the consequence of substandard visibility?
So it's a highway safety matter.
Yes.
If you can't achieve the visibility displays, there is, highway safety implications. It's potentially unacceptable. The design of the site access is potentially unacceptable.
And I want to talk now about the A10 Puffin crossing. Can you take the inspector to the design of that crossing?
So I think it's in
So that's
CD
2.93.
Yeah, or 2.13 is, I think, the more updated version. Appendix G.
Yes. Appendix G of 2.13. Yes, 2.13. So that's the TA addendum, Appendix G. Yes, madam. That's PDF page 359.
I'm struggling to find it now.
Thank you, Tam.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've got it.
So, what do you say is wrong with this Puffin crossing design?
So the layout, the junction layout here, it doesn't accord with how a signal junction would be designed. There are various giveaway lines when there should be stop lines, signal heads in locations where you wouldn't expect them. There are posts missing. I would also say the width of the staggered crossing is below standard. So it doesn't feel, in my professional opinion, that this has been designed to a sort of normal layout, and maybe not a thorough design review hasn't been undertaken. So it's difficult to conclude that this would be acceptable, an acceptable form of junction. There's been no road safety audit undertaken as well. So you would expect that from a preliminary design prior to planning application. And given that this is very critical to the case that's being made and the subsequent modelling, then I would have expected this to have gone through a road safety audit, a stage 1 road safety audit, and a sort of thorough design review, just to establish that it can be implemented.
And why do you say that it's critical?
Because all the modelling that's been undertaken for the future scenarios and the development scenarios are predicated on the implementation of this puffing crossing. So it is reliant upon it. And I think Hertfordshire, in their response, I think it's in July 2025, stated that effectively without this, the impact of the development would be severe, or there would be blocking back through various junctions if this puffing crossing wasn't in place.
And if the design's not adequate and it's not been audited, I mean, what's the consequence?
Well, it might have to be designed differently. The modelling may have to be adjusted. Perhaps, for example, if it's found that the staggered crossing needs to be wider, some of the lane widths may need to change. That will affect the modelling results. It may be that they can't implement it. Maybe there are some safety implications that come out of that when an auditor looks at this, an independent auditor looks at it, and they may have to revert to a different type of crossing. Maybe it's a straight ahead crossing, or maybe they can't have a signal crossing here. It's without it being audited, there are those uncertainties as to whether it can be implemented.
Thank you. And I want to talk now, moving on to the model. Let's start with trip rates. How has the appellant derived the trip rates used in the TA?
So they've used a TRICS database to derive person trip rates, which is a reasonable approach, standard practice. And then they've looked at census data to understand the current mode share of people in this area, so journey to work census data. And again, that's a standard approach. However, the area that they've selected, it does capture this area, captures this site, but the vast majority, almost all of the population of this census area live closer to the town centre.
Yeah.
They are closer to all those amenities. They're more likely, or it's easier for them to walk and cycle. and walk to the railway station compared to residents that would be in this site in the future. So therefore, using that census data probably it more than likely would overestimate the number of people that would walk or cycle or take public transport. And therefore, it probably would, by implication, underestimate the number of driving trips and car trips.
What do you say they should have done instead?
I think there should have been a sensitivity test. So they've taken that census data, they've applied it to the person trip rate, but what they should have done is said, right, okay, well, that's one scenario, but as a sensitivity test, we should look at potentially if there were fewer cycle trips and walk trips and public transport trips from our site and a higher amount of car trips, and therefore undertaking a sensitivity test with a higher car trip rate.
And so sticking with modelling, let's talk about Barkway Road. What's your concern about Barkway Road operationally?
So, I mean, it's been stated quite a lot so far that Barkway Road has parking along its length from the gyratory up to the site. On-street parking, which restricts traffic flows. It effectively makes it one-way working, shuttle working for substantial length of Barkway Road. And so when you have vehicles in both directions, people need to give way. There are delays, and there are times during congested periods where there can be a significant level of delay. And I think as part of our survey work, we've looked at journey times and set out what sort of delay. In fact, the table that we corrected sets out the delays along Barkway Road. So, and that's with current conditions. And there are instances, and we've included that in some of our, in one of the appendices, where we've seen drivers to make way for other drivers mounting the footway. And so it can lead to, currently can lead, or does lead to unsafe driving behaviour. And of course, if you've got an increase in traffic along Barkway Road, then those instances will inevitably increase. There will be more delay. And yeah, therefore, you know, it's something that should be looked at, should have been looked at in detail.
I mean, has Barkway Road been modelled?
No. So the gyratory has been modelled. Yes. But the Barkway Road link hasn't been modelled, and it has been raised by Hertfordshire, the Highway Authority, previously, and they expressed concerns, and they have concluded, and they've confirmed that you can't model it using LingSig. It would need to be modeled using a micro simulation tool.
And has that been done?
No, that hasn't been done.
Have we got any images you'd like to show the inspector as to what looking at Barkway Road today would looks like?
Yes, so I think that's in the rebuttal.
Yes. Appendix C.
Appendix C, okay. Yeah, okay, Appendix C. And what we've done in Appendix C is taken a selection of snapshots during peak periods just to demonstrate traffic conditions at various points, either on the gyratory or on Barkway Road, just to show that currently there is congestion along those routes during peak periods. And then on page, no, there's no page, but PDF page, a second ago, 24.
Yes.
Can see it in the distance. It was clearer on the footage, but of a vehicle, it's a van driving on the footway. So as you're going away from the camera, and we've tried to highlight that with a label and a yellow arrow. And then on PDF page 26, you can see vehicles making way for a bus traveling southbound along Barkway Road. There's 2 cars that have moved onto the footway to give way, or to let a vehicle pass.
And do we know what percentage of development traffic would use Barkway Road?
Yeah, so I think it's been agreed, and in the mode assessment, that 98% of development traffic would use Barkway Road. So yeah, almost all.
Is there anything else you want to add about Barkway Road?
Well, not at this stage, but probably when I would say that as part of the modelling for the gyratory,
Yes.
There are proposals to include some new signalised crossings along Barkway Road, including one towards the northern end of Barkway Road, close to the gyratory.
Yep.
And that will potentially, during peak periods, involve vehicles queuing back onto the gyratory. And it's just something that hasn't been looked at in the modelling assessment. It's not part of the modelling scenario that was undertaken.
So that's another modelling deficiency, you say. And so let's talk about the gyratory then. I mean, how did Mode model the existing gyratory?
So the existing gyratory was modelled originally in 2021. It was included in their 2020, it may have been modelled slightly before, but it was included in their 2021 transport assessment and transport assessment addendum. And they modelled it using junction software. So this is for the current layout. And the gyratory includes a series of 3 priority junctions plus a zebra crossing. So junctions, in theory, is a suitable tool to model the existing gyratory. And so for the proposed scheme, where they've included a puffin crossing, they've modeled it using the Linsig tool. And Linsig is the relevant tool when you are looking at signal junctions, or it can be a relevant tool when you're looking at signal junctions. So in 2021, they modeled the existing layout using junctions, but they didn't model it in the most recent work. There is no existing base model for the gyratory, as far as I'm aware.
Why is that an issue?
Well, so for the 2025 work, they commissioned some surveys in 2024, and it's been acknowledged that the 2021 work relied on surveys during COVID.
Mhm.
And so it was an opportunity to make sure that the survey data was more representative, because it's now, well outside the COVID period. And so you've got a new set of data and you want to understand the existing situation. So what you would do is you would model the existing situation, because you want to understand whether the model reflects current conditions. So that's the whole point of preparing a base model. You get the new data, you put it in the model. Does it reflect current world situation? Is it fit for purpose? Can we use this as our base to then start looking at future scenarios? But they haven't done it. There's that. Because what you then do, once you set up your Linsig model, is you use some of the parameters from the base model, some of the giveaway parameters. And of course, the Linsig model still has some of those, well, all of those giveaway junctions. And best practice is for some of the parameters in junction to be used in the Linsig model. But without creating that model, without validating it against the 2024 surveys, without validating it against queues or observed queues from 2024, it's, the Linsig model and the scenarios can't be relied upon. They're based on, well, they're not based on anything. They're new models. There's no validation against current circumstances and conditions.
Thank you. And just to be fair, I mean, you mentioned you include in your evidence some correspondence with TRL. Is there anything you want to say about TRL said about some of the challenges around modeling these types of scenarios?
Yeah. So we sort of communicated with TRL and sort of showed them the layout of the current junction. And TRL are the developers of the junction software, so they're the experts in that field. And the comments they made were, well, that's a tricky junction to model using junctions.
Mm-hmm.
And it can be awkward to model it using junctions. And that sort of suggests that there are better models and better methods to look at the interactions between the three priority junctions. There are other side roads that come on and off the gyratory. You've also obviously got the zebra. There are instances of queuing back from other junctions onto the gyratory. And that, once you get blocking back onto a junction, that lends itself to sort of micro simulation tool. Obviously, if the validation exercise has been undertaken, there's a validation report, you can demonstrate that the model is reflecting current conditions. That gives a bit more certainty as to its value as a tool. But then there are instances when you can't sort of get the model to correspond with real life queuing, and you look at other tools such as microsimulation tools.
And to close this out, let's talk about vision-led, which comes up a number of times in your evidence. Mr. Hadel, what do you say is meant by a vision-led approach to transport assessment?
So vision-led, this term came into the MPPF at the end of 2024. It has been discussed in transport circles before that as well. but it's trying to move away from this predict and provide approach, where you take historic data, you look at your site, you say, right, well, it's going to act, and we want it to be just like it used to in the past. We're going to predict the number of trips, and we're going to design accordingly. But actually, what we want in a vision is we want sites that are sustainable. We want to be encouraging walking, cycling, public transport. That should be the vision as set out in the MPPF. And the vision-led transport approach takes that on board. And what it's then trying to say is, well, please set out the vision. What are the outcomes we want? It might be that we want to focus more on the walking and cycling, or in some cases, maybe it's more on the public transport. How can we embed that into the scheme? How do we quantify some of the measures and the mitigation that we're putting forward? How will that affect mode share? How will it help with the vision? We then may look at, well, what if we can't implement a certain scheme? Is there a fallback? What would the effect be on that? What would the effect be on trip rates if we can't implement a certain scheme, or if we can implement a walking improvement or a cycling improvement? So there's a whole range of considerations to the vision-led approach, where we set outcomes, we look at mitigation, we look at the impacts, and we do some scenario testing. And then also we set a kind of monitoring package or regime, where, following consent, we say, or well, prior to consent, but following implementation, what if we weren't able to achieve that mode share? What would we do? What are the other measures and mitigation that we might put forward? And I haven't seen any of that vision-led approach within the sort of information put forward for this scheme.
So the final question from me is, I mean, drawing all of that together, what's your overall conclusion for the inspector on highways and transport grounds?
So in terms of the sustainability, it's not a sustainable development, in that, in terms of encouraging people to walk, cycle, or take the bus, the options just aren't there. It won't be an attractive location for those modes. It will be a car-dominated scheme. The proposals for walking and cycling aren't inclusive, so I don't believe there will be suitable access for all users as per MPPF paragraph 115. In terms of highway safety, it hasn't been demonstrated that the site access has or can achieve the visibility displays that are required. No modelling has been undertaken on Barkway Road, so it hasn't been demonstrated that there isn't a capacity issue, or there wouldn't be a severe impact. And so in conclusion, I don't believe it meets the tests of paragraphs 115 and 116 of the MPPF, or indeed SP6 and SP9 of North Hertfordshire's policies.
Thank you very much, Mr. Hayder. I think you can have some questions from Mr. Chung now.
Hello. We don't seem to have had our fire drill that I was expecting. We will, though, have a short adjournment now for a comfort break until 11:15, 11:15. Thank you. No. Okay, it's 11:15. The inquiry is resumed. Mr. Chung, would you like to proceed with your cross?
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you. Good morning, Mr. Hayder.
Morning.
You may have to speak up a bit because I'm quite a long way off, and move closer to the microphone. Now you'll be relieved to hear, Mr. Hayden. I'm sure the inspector will be relieved to hear. I'm not going to ask you all the same questions about accessibility of you that I asked of Mr. Hegarty, because that'd simply be repetitious. So I'm just going to pick up a few points with you on accessibility, if I may. On your paragraph at 440, you make reference. This is your proof of evidence. You make reference to 441, the DFT's inclusive mobility, a guide to best practice and access to pedestrian transport infrastructure. Yes?
Yes, I do. Yes.
Now, to my knowledge, this is not guidance that is either intended to or has been used as a tool to assess the accessibility or otherwise of existing travel routes, has it?
I'm not sure about that. I think it's I think it is meant to review the suitability of routes, paths, infrastructure for the mobility impaired.
Now, my question is different, Mr. Hayder. It's not intended to, nor is it used as a tool to assess the accessibility or otherwise of existing travel routes, is it?
No. Okay.
No.
But as I said, it gives guidance on the acceptability of widths, gradients, other features that would be present in existing routes and infrastructure.
Next question. It's not mentioned or adopted in local planning policy, is it? By the local highway authority or by this planning authority for assessing the acceptability or otherwise of sites in terms of whether they are sufficiently accessible, is it?
I don't know the answer to that, if it's included in their guidance. I haven't seen reference to it, but I haven't read through every aspect of their guidance.
Yeah. You would have, in preparation for writing your evidence, looked at what local highway policy was on accessibility. You've done that, haven't you?
I have.
Yeah.
And I would say that this is national guidance, and I would expect this to be almost taken as one of those core documents, a bit like LTM 120.
Is that it?
Is that it?
Okay.
Disappointing. So, Mr. Hayder, we agreed a few moments ago that it's not intended, nor is it used to assess the accessibility or otherwise of existing travel routes. You agreed that. My next question was, it's not been adopted by this local highway authority or this local planning authority for assessing the acceptability or otherwise of sites for development? And the answer to that is no, it hasn't.
I'm not sure if that is correct. What I would say is that local authorities frequently refer to this documentation. And I don't know if specifically Hertfordshire do, but I would be surprised if they don't refer to this guidance because it's almost universally accepted.
No, Mr. Hayder, it's your evidence. You've done lots of work in writing your evidence, and where it suits you, you've drawn attention, the inspector's attention to those documents and policies which are in the local plan and in local policy. Now, if you're going to say that this is adopted policy in this district, either been adopted by the local planning authority or adopted by the local highway authority, this is your opportunity to take the inspector to it.
So I'm not aware that it is adopted policy specifically in both the LPA and the LHA.
And it's right, isn't it? And if you don't know the answer, just say you don't know. At no point during the 6 years that we liaised with the local planning authority or the local highway authority did they say, you must go away and tell us how your development measures up against the DFT inclusivity mobility.
No, I don't believe they did that. Okay.
No. And I understand, Mr. Hayder, that you do advise developer clients. When you advise developer clients and you're looking at development sites in existing settlements, do you use the DFT's inclusive mobility guide to decide whether the site passes the test of being accessible?
Yes, all the time.
So the evidence you're giving to this inquiry is that when you advise clients, developer clients, about whether a site is acceptable in terms of accessibility, you judge it against the DFT inclusivity mobility guide as a pass-fail test.
It's a consideration. So we would advise our clients that they don't meet those standards or they do meet those standards. And if they don't, then what would we do about it? What's the mitigation? What are there alternative routes that we could suggest?
Yeah. Which is precisely what my client has done, isn't it? It's looked at this site, looked at what is available, and it's looked at what improvements can be made. That's right, isn't it?
Yes, they've done that. Yeah.
The next point is LTN 120. Once again, it is not a guide for judging the acceptability or otherwise of existing cycle routes, is it?
I don't think so. I'm going to say yes, it is in part. I don't think this is a yes/no answer because LTN 120 has lots of reference to existing infrastructure and existing routes. And there is reference to what should we do about amending existing routes. It's also a guide that the purpose of it is to provide infrastructure that is attractive to for cycling, and how authorities can encourage more cyclists. So LTN 120 is often used when assessing existing routes as well.
I'm going to ask the question again. Can you take me to that part of LTN 120 which says this is the guidance that should be used for deciding whether existing cycle routes
are acceptable, either within the guide, or whether there's anything that the local highway authority says this is the guide that should be used for judging whether existing cycle routes are acceptable in planning terms.
I can't take you to, so no,
No.
I can't take you to those specific words.
And the reason is, Mr. Hayder, because that's not its purpose, is it? And you know that, don't you? It's not its purpose, is it? As you well know. Do you agree?
No, I don't agree. LTM 120 is guidance on the acceptability of cycle infrastructure. And there will be cycle infrastructure that is new and is existing and is a mixture of the two.
I've given you 3 opportunities. Last opportunity. If you're going to make this case, I'm going to see this in my learned friends' closing submissions, that this is a guide which is used and is intended to be used for judging the acceptability of whether existing cycle routes are acceptable in planning terms. This is your opportunity to take me to it.
No, as I said, there is no specific wording for saying that this LTM 120 is for existing routes.
Right. Now, before we get on to Shrubbery Grove, in terms of existing cycle routes along Barkway Road, or indeed existing cycle routes to potential development sites generally, okay? So we're looking at existing settlements which need to expand in order to meet our housing needs. Now, is it your professional opinion that we should write off any and all sites for housing if the existing cycle routes do not meet the standards set out in LTN 120?
No.
No. As far as the new or the improvement works that we have suggested at the Shrubbery Grove link are concerned, the authority, the highway authority, when they considered those those potential works, were aware of LTN 120, weren't they? They are aware of it.
Yes, I believe they are.
Yeah. And they were also aware that its standards could not be met given the existing topography. Yeah. Nonetheless, they said to us, and the sustainability officer of the local planning authority said to us, that if possible, they would like these works of improvement to be carried out. And Mr. Hayder, would you agree that the reason that they said that if it could be done, they'd like it done, is because it would represent an improvement on what is there at the moment?
Yes, I agree that it would represent an improvement.
Yeah.
But I would say that it would still be of a design which would not encourage people to use it for cycling or walking.
Right. So your evidence to the inspector, and the inspector will go and have a look at what it looks like at the moment. I'm not going to ask you all those questions that I asked Mr. Hegarty about what it's like at the moment and his usability at the moment. We've had that discussion. But your evidence to the inspector is that the sustainability officer and the local highway authority looked at the works that we proposed or suggested that we do those works. It would represent an improvement. It would not still be attractive to walkers or cyclists. Is that what you're saying?
That's what I'm saying. And I'd probably add the word inclusive in there as well. It wouldn't be inclusive.
Is it your evidence that even in its improved condition, cyclists won't use it? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, so yes, I am saying that. And
no cyclist is ever going to use it, even in its improved condition.
Sorry, if I misheard,
not no cyclists. Some
Right.
cyclists are.
Some cyclists.
Some cyclists will use it. Maybe a few cyclists. It's not been quantified.
What's he
But
based?
I
Sorry,
would
I do
say,
apologize.
sorry, I would just say, I think in my professional opinion, the majority, or vast majority of people who would like to cycle would not use it. The gradients are steep, and the design that we've seen is not suitable for cyclists, or at least not attractive, with the presence of chicanes, the gravel surfacing, its unlit nature, the gradients, its uneven surface actually as well. So yes, I think a few cyclists would use it, but I don't think many would use it.
Right, well, we can leave that. You'll hear from Mr. Frisby as well on that, and we can leave that to the judgment of the inspector. She can see what it looks like at the moment, who uses it at the moment, and we know that cyclists use it at the moment. Yeah, and she can make her own judgment about whether this would be an improvement that would increase the number of cyclists who would be prepared to use it. You make some points about its deliverability, but you are not a lawyer, are you, in terms of what powers the local highway authority has to improve public rights of way or to create cycleways, are you?
That's correct. I'm not a lawyer.
And questions about the town council's position are not for you. So the next point I had for you, I've got a series of rather miscellaneous points before we get onto highway safety and congestion. Your 4.86. You refer to recent planning decision, the Briery Lane site, don't you? Now, Mr. Hayder, there is no comprehensive assessment of the accessibility or otherwise of this site before our inspector, is there?
No. I think the case law, at least the decision notice, is in some of the appendices, but not a comprehensive assessment of the
No.
accessibility of that site. No.
So, for example, I'm instructed that it's a site that lacks bus stops in reasonable proximity. Did you know that?
Yes, I did know that.
Now, we know that the officers of this council recommended this site, the one we're looking at, for approval. We know that the local highway authority considered it for a very long time and decided that they had no objection to it and believed that it was sufficiently accessible. And we know that the officers of the council do not support the development of the Briery Lane site because they say it's not sufficiently accessible. Now, putting those two facts together, Mr. Hayder, the only conclusion we can draw is that the officers themselves certainly don't think the two are comparable, do they, as regards accessibility?
So in terms of the judgment, yes, obviously the highway authority have deemed this site to be acceptable, or at least the proposals to be acceptable, and deemed that one to be unacceptable. But I would draw strong parallels and similarities to both sites, and my professional judgment or opinion is that they are similar and comparable, and that the Highways Authority have made a mistake for this site, or at least we don't agree with their assessment. And of course, it's up to the inspector to review all the material before her.
So the position is that the local highway authority and the planning officers do not consider these sites to be comparable because they made different decisions about them. But you, Mr. Hayder, think they are comparable. And for that, you put forward nothing other than the decision that we see, or the committee report that we see in the appendices. And that's it.
That's correct.
Yeah. Okay. Since you chose to make comparisons, why did you not draw the inspector's attention to the fact that site RY11, which is next to the appeal site, is an allocation in the local plan and was deemed to be acceptable by the council?
I haven't looked at that site in any detail, so I'm not going to be able to answer that question.
Paragraph 438 of your evidence you refer to a High Court decision, including Barkway, my clients, and citing Great Lumley. Now, you may or may not know this, but I'll ask you the question. Do you know that on matters of planning judgment, a decision will be quashed by the High Court only if the decision of the inspector was, to use layman's terms, wholly unreasonable? Yeah? That's the test.
Okay,
Yeah.
I accept.
That's the test. So this decision that you decided to put in your proof of evidence tells us nothing more, does it, Mr. Hayder, than that on the facts of that case, the inspector's decision was not wholly unreasonable. That's what it tells us. Can't tell us anything more than that, can it?
Yes, okay, yeah,
Yeah.
I agree.
Whether a site is sufficiently accessible is a matter of judgment, isn't it? Which will vary from case to case and from inspector to inspector, won't it?
Yes,
And our inspector is not bound by the judgment of another inspector looking at the accessibility or otherwise of another site.
that's correct.
We looked at the Great Lumley decision. The settlement was described as one that sat in a low position in the settlement hierarchy, a matter that you don't draw to the attention of our inspector, is it, Mr. Hayder? You don't mention that in your evidence, do you?
No, I don't. No.
Neither do you mention the fact that the inspector was critical of the fact that the services that were available were of a very limited nature. You don't mention that either, do you?
No, I don't mention that.
Now, moving on then to highway safety and design. Once again, I'm not going to go through each and every point that appears in your evidence because we have served a rebuttal to your evidence. You see Mr. Frisby's answer to the points you raise. And of course, your advocate, Mr. Zamacalo, will have the opportunity to ask Mr. Frisby questions about it. Just a couple of preliminary points before I ask you just a few questions about what you have said. The local highway authority has a statutory duty, doesn't it, to ensure that the highway is safe for use by everyone, cyclists, pedestrians, motorists. That's right.
It does, yes.
Yeah. And it also has a duty to ask itself whether there will be severe impact if a proposal comes along.
Yes.
Yeah. And it can ask a developer to carry out surveys, traffic counts, provide designs. It can ask anything it wants to of a developer, and a developer has to provide that if they want the local highway authority to support or at least not object to their proposal.
Yes,
Yeah.
that's right.
And in this case, that is what the local highway authority has done over a course of, as I say, 6 years. And it's right, isn't it, Mr. Hayder, that in terms of anything and everything they asked for, in terms of technical details, modelling, modal split, all of these matters, we have provided it to them.
Yes, that's right.
And they would have considered that very carefully, wouldn't they, before deciding that they didn't object. They don't act for us. They don't have any interest in whether our development goes ahead or not, and they don't really care how much it costs us to make a development acceptable, to make sure that it's safe and won't cause severe harm. And despite all of that, they have expressed themselves to be satisfied with everything that we provided to them, and say that there will not be a severe impact, and there are no concerns about safety. That's the position, isn't it?
That's their position. That's right.
And Mr. Hegarty, who, like you, is a qualified transport planner, he also reviewed, as he said to me in cross-examination, he reviewed the position of the Highway Authority, looked at the council statement of case, and decided that in terms of highway safety and design, there was not a case that could be put forward. That's right, isn't it?
That was his position.
Yeah.
Of course, mine differs from that.
Right. So let me just pick up a few points. Let's have a look at Mr. Frisbee's rebuttal proof, please. Mr. Frisbee's rebuttal proof. I hope I've got the right reference. Right. So this is about the timing of the surveys.
Sorry, could you just repeat, or at least provide the CD? There's not a CD number for that, is there?
I don't have the CD numbers. I just have the proofs. So it's Mr. Frisbee's rebuttal at his section 4.2, which is surveys, and PDF page 11.
Sorry, I don't have that at the moment. I'm looking for it.
Take your time.
Which paragraph did you mention?
It's 4.22. This is in respect of surveys.
Got it now.
Yeah. So one of your criticisms, Mr. Hayder, is that December is not a neutral month, and Mr. Frisbee undertook the surveys in December. If you look at 4.22, he quotes tag unit M1 1.2, and the guidance refers to the weeks before, after Easter and Christmas holidays as periods to avoid. It does not say that December is not a month that should be used for surveys. That's correct, isn't it?
That is correct, yeah.
Now, it refers to the Christmas holidays. Now, I don't know whether you're lucky to break up in the first or second week of December, but that's not when the Christmas holidays begin for most people, are they?
No, that they are later than that.
Yeah. But what it actually does say you should avoid is the weeks before or after Easter. Now, the week after Easter Sunday is definitely the week after Easter, isn't it, Mr. Hayder?
Yes.
Which is when you took your surveys.
Yeah, we did. Or at least part of the surveys.
Why is your, even leaving that point to one side, which I'm sure the inspectors made a note of, why is your data any more representative or typical than the data collected by Mr. Frisbee in December?
So the data collected in December 2024, my understanding is it's over the course of one day. And the guidance is clear that to particularly for non-neutral months, longer term data should be collected to verify or at least review that sort of single day data. For us, I acknowledge that our surveys in April, just after Easter, if we had more time to present it to the inquiry, we would have waited. But of course, we were under a bit of time pressure. But I think it's not really up to us to provide traffic data and modeling and a sort of full analysis. The purpose of our survey was to demonstrate that if you take a week's worth of data and sort of review it and compare it to just a single day, there can be anomalies and there can be discrepancies. And what I would say is that a week after Easter, we went a bit beyond that. So the data that we've presented is the purpose of it is to sort of as a comparison of that single day that was undertaken in December, rather than a sort of definitive set of data that we would then plug into a model.
Okay, let's just think about that for just for a moment. I won't spend a great deal of time on this, but in terms of whether you do a single day, more than a single day, I'll get Mr. Frisby to comment on that. Are you saying that there is some mandatory guidance out there which says thou must measure for more than a single day, and if you don't measure for more than a single day, your survey is invalid?
It's in the tag guidance. So I think in my proof, paragraph 6.6, I quote the tag guidance, and it states, oh, have you got that?
Just give me one moment, Mr. Hader. Thank you very much. 6.6, you say? Your proof of evidence. Yes, thank you very much.
Fine. So it says, when the purpose of the model is to represent neutral conditions, practitioners are advised to gather initial evidence, for example, long-term count data, to understand current travel patterns and help determine the most appropriate neutral periods for their surveys.
So I just need to be very clear so I can obviously ask Mr. Frisby questions about it and close appropriately. Is it the case? Are you reading that paragraph? Because I don't have the whole document in front of me. Are you reading that paragraph to say to the inspector that there is a rule invariably followed by all practitioners that the data has to be collected for more than a day?
It's good practice. It's clearly it's not a rule that all practitioners are doing it, but it's good guidance, and it's good practice.
Obviously, we provided our data to the local highway authority. If this was so important and could make some material difference, then why didn't the local highway authority say to us, you've only gathered data for a day? Everybody knows it's good practice, best practice to gather for a week and 2 weeks. Go away and do it. Why do you think they didn't do that, Mr. Hayden?
I can't speak for why the local highway authority took that position or didn't take that position.
I'm just interested to know where this evidence that you set out in your rebuttal of 2.26, your let me just get that in front of me. Your 2 point just give me 1 second. Your rebuttal 2.26 is where you set out the data that you've collected and that you were keen to have introduced to the inquiry, and you've been allowed to introduce it to the inquiry late. So we now have it. What I really want to know, Mr. Hayder, is where does it take us? I mean, other than showing the traffic flows will vary every time you take a survey, how does it take us any further?
Well, it provides a comparison between the December 2024 flows,
Yeah.
which we are concerned aren't representative and were taken over a single day. And it compares that to an average for a week.
Right.
And it shows that the April surveys were, for the most part, higher than the December 2024 survey counts.
So the premise of this argument, first of all, is you have to persuade the inspector that December is not a neutral month. We've discussed that. And then you have to persuade the inspector that a single day is somehow contrary to good practice, and the Highway Authority were wrong to accept a single day. That's before we get any further in this analysis.
Yes, that's correct. Yeah.
And then thirdly, you have to persuade the inspector that this Easter reading survey is somehow more representative than what we found. But the fact is, Mr. Taylor, you could go out in June and find something different, go out in August and find something different again.
That's true. You could find different results at different times, but by undertaking longer term count data, the certainty is higher that it will be representative rather than taking one day, which has a higher probability of being less representative.
Right. And then, as I say, I'm confused as to where it takes us. Even if you overcome all of those steps in the analysis that you have to overcome, how does it tell us that there would be a severe impact? I mean, you could have taken this data, you could have put it through the model that we agreed with the local highway authority and say, well, here you are, Madam Inspector. If you use my data, you end up with a severe impact. But that's not what you've done, is it?
No, we haven't modelled the junction. That's really up to the appellant to do in a proper fashion.
No. Mr. Hayder, we have done it in a proper fashion. We agreed a fashion with the local highway authority. Mr. Frisbee thought that was the right way to go. The local highway authority thought it was the right way to go. You are, of course, entitled to take a different view, and you've come along and taken a different view. But if you're going to put the evidence forward, it's got to go to something. So you brought this evidence forward, but you are unable to say to the inspector, are you? Well, if you put this data through the model, there would be a severe impact.
That's correct. We haven't done that. But what we're saying is that it hasn't been demonstrated that there isn't a severe impact.
Yeah, but this is my point, Mr. Hayder. This is what I don't understand about your whole evidence and the time being taken up at the inquiry. You want us to do things that we don't want to do because we don't think is necessary. And we haven't done them. And the local highway authorities agreed with us that we don't need to do them. But then you say, here's some other data that we should have taken this data that you've provided and put it through a model, even though we've told you that the data we've collected was acceptable to us and acceptable to the highway authority. So my point is, if you want to make this point, you had every opportunity to put it through the model and say, well, if you use this data, it makes a material difference. And you are unable to do that, aren't you?
I haven't done it. I'm not saying take my data. What I'm saying is you should have, or the appellant should have, undertaken longer term data to verify the 1 day count in December.
Right.
And that would have been a robust and it would have followed guidance, a robust approach, and it would have followed guidance.
Yeah. So again, we'll leave that with the inspector. Same point or similar point arises with your modal split point that you raise in your rebuttal. Now, the argument, as I understand it, Mr. Hayder, runs along these lines, that the modal split that Mr. Frisby has used is optimistic. First point, once again, sound like a broken record, agreed with the local highway authority. Mr. Hegarty came along. He didn't think there was an issue with it. It is you who say a different modal split should have been used. Is that right?
Yes, that's correct.
But you don't say what modal split we should have used, do you?
No, I haven't gone that far.
No. And neither do you present any evidence that if the unspecified split you think we should have used was used and put through the model, it would show a severe impact. You don't do that either, do you?
No, I haven't done that.
The next point is the highway safety point about speed surveys. Yeah. Now, just so that I understand this, Mr. Frisby's evidence is that he measured the speeds northbound and southbound, and he used the high speed to work out the display. Do you agree that that's what he did?
Yes, yes, I agree. That's what he did. Yes.
Your only argument appears to be, and I think, this is my fault, I've only just understood it now, is that when he put the lines down on the road, he should have put 2 lines down rather than 1, the ATC counters.
He should have put an ATC in two ATCs in separate places.
Once again, I ask myself the question, this is fairly basic stuff. Make sure you got the right display at the access, and it's pretty critical. If the local highway authority thought that we didn't have the right speed data to work out the display, surely they would have said so. They should have said, you only put down 1 ATC. Everybody knows you put down 2.
Yeah, I agree. They should have said that. Yeah.
So it's your evidence to the inspector is that they missed something fundamental and obvious. I mean, are you accusing them of negligence?
No, I'll say yes to the first point. I'm not accusing them of negligence, but I think they have got it wrong.
Once again, are you able to take me anywhere to say that on this road, well, it wouldn't be on this road, but at a general level, regardless of the road, regardless of the circumstances, you put down 2 ATCs, you don't put down 1?
I can't think of any guidance that specifically says that, but what I would say is that there will be, it's not just standard practice, it's just common sense that you would want to understand the speed in a certain direction that relates to the visibility in that direction.
Right. But let's think this through. It's so fundamental, goes to safety, yet no one ever has thought it a good idea to put it down in some guidance.
No, I'm not saying that. I'm not saying that they haven't. I can't think of anything off the top of my head, partly because it's so obvious that probably stop looking for that guidance because it's so obvious.
And so obvious, but the local highway authority missed it.
Correct.
Right. So once again, those are the obstacles you have to surmount in order to persuade the inspector that you're right on this point. And then just so I understand how this argument went, Mr. Frisby then says, Mr. Hayder, you're wrong about all of those things. But in any event, this is all academic because where does your point take you? Well, you're going to need a 215 display. Well, the space is there to provide a 215 display. To which you say, well, I haven't seen it on a plan. Is that how the arguments proceeded?
That's correct. I haven't seen that on a plan.
Well, why should we show it to you on a plan when we've already decided that this is the display that we need and it's been agreed with the highway authority? Why would we suddenly provide you with a plan? If you're going to say to the inspector, these guys need a 215 display and they can't achieve it, go out and measure it.
Give the inspector the evidence. Why haven't you done it?
The onus is on the appellant to demonstrate that there is a safe site access proposed.
It's your point, Mr. Hayder. It's your point. You're the one who says we've miscalculated the displays. To which we say, even if you're right and you're wrong, even if you're right, 215 is there. This is how it's come about at this 11th hour with your involvement. It's your point. Go and measure it. Say to the inspector, 215 is what's needed and they can't achieve it. Why haven't you done it? It's your point.
We haven't done it because I think the onus is on the appellant to produce a plan showing satisfactory visibility displays and to undertake it as per guidance and correctly.
So, Mr. Hayder, your argument is that you can come along at the 11th hour after we worked with the Highway Authority for 6 years, and whichever point you raise, we should run off, scurry along, and go and prove you wrong. Is that how it works?
On this point, yes, I think it should be that way.
Right. Okay. Once again, let's leave that with the inspector and see how attractive she finds that point. The next point is the gyratory. Can't even get my words out now. The gyratory at the London Road, where there's currently a zebra crossing. Mr. Hayder, in your evidence in chief, and to be fair, in your evidence, you raised some concerns about the preliminary design. But the point is, it is a preliminary design, isn't it? Whatever goes in place will have to be agreed with the Highway Authority. We can't just go and put in whatever we want. There will be a detailed design process, and whatever goes in will either have to comply with all standards, or if the local Highway Authority see fit to give us a relaxation from standards, that will be a matter for them, won't it?
Yes, in terms of that second point, if there are departures from standards, that will be up to the Highway Authority.
Yeah.
I would say that it is a preliminary design, but with a preliminary design, you would want the layout to be looked at properly, and for it to be consistent with how it should be laid out. In this case, it has several deficiencies, and from that, I'm not certain that it can be implemented. I'm also, I mean, we'll get to the road safety point, I'm sure, but as it's not been designed properly, I'm not sure that it would be accepted, or a detailed design could be implemented.
Right. Let's just break that down, because I mean, I'll flag it up right at the beginning so we know where we're going. My point to you, Mr. Hayder, is that like all of your other points, this is the point that really goes nowhere. So let's just take it in stages. First of all, you've looked at a preliminary design and you say, well, there's all sorts of problems with the preliminary design. To which the answer, Mr. Hayder, is that this is not the design that if anything is implemented, this is not the design that will be implemented. Whatever design is implemented will have to meet standards, won't it? If it doesn't meet standards, it won't be approved.
Yes, I agree with that.
Yeah. Okay. So if we are agreed that if and when this development goes ahead, there will have to be design which meets standards in all respects. Otherwise, the local highway authority won't allow us to do it. Right. So that's point number one.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. Point number two, the highway authority did ask for a road safety audit 1 of the crossing at the site entrance, but they did not ask for a road safety audit 1 for the upgrade of the zebra crossing. Now, what that demonstrates, Mr. Hayder, is that the highway authority exercises its discretion on a case-by-case basis as to whether an RSA 1 is or is not required. That's correct, isn't it?
Yes, that's correct.
And there is nothing unusual about that, is there?
There's nothing unusual about that in principle, correct? What I would say here is that this piece of infrastructure change from zebra to signal is so fundamental to the proposals. It's relied upon in the modelling. Without it, the Highway Authority have said that the scheme would involve large queues at the gyratory. That, in my professional opinion, the Highway Authority should have insisted, and there should have been a stage 1 road safety audit for this scheme.
So once again, they know, as you have yourself actually outlined, they are the ones who say that without this, there would be a severe impact. They are well aware that this is important, that this has to happen, and that their position of no objection is based on that. But having regard to all of that, they exercise their discretion that a road safety audit number 1 was not required. And all you're saying to the inspector is that you disagree with their exercise of discretion. If you were the Highway Authority, you would have asked for one.
So yes, I agree with that. I will also say that it is contrary to their guidance and policy as well. So if you go to their design guide, they set out the different stages of design and the different safety audits that are required. And for a preliminary design, they require, or at least they set out, that a stage 1 road safety audit should be prepared.
Well, it's their guidance. It's their guidance. And it's their guidance, and it's for them to decide when they want to apply it and when, in their discretion, they don't want to apply it. And all you can say, Mr. Hayder, is that you would have taken a different decision, and that's fine. If you'd worked at the Highway Authority, you may have called for one, and we would have had to carry one out. But you don't, and we haven't, and that's the end of it. But let's just follow this through, right? You don't present any evidence at all, do you, that making this into a signalized crossing would raise a safety issue, do you?
No, I don't.
No. As I understand the argument appears to be, if we can't put this in, there will be a severe impact. Is that what you're saying?
No, I'm not going that far. I'm not saying that. I'm saying that if this can't be implemented, the modelling would have to be revised.
Right.
And there may be a severe impact as a result of that change in the modelling and the layout. And certainly if it just stays as a zebra crossing, then, as the Highway Authority have stated, that would lead to substantial queuing along the gyratory, which would constitute a severe impact.
Yeah, and that's my point, you see. So let's just follow that through. They want this to happen. They say if it doesn't happen, there would be a severe impact, or they were concerned there would be a severe impact. You are not presenting any evidence to why this signalized crossing would raise a safety issue. If for whatever reason, this appears to be your point, if for whatever reason we can't put this in, the development won't take place, will there? And there will be no severe impact.
Yes, that's right.
Yeah. So once again, where does it take us? So there's a condition that we have to signalize this crossing, and at that point we'll have to put forward not a preliminary design but a fully worked up design. It'll have to be subject to RSA 1, RSA 2, and it'll have to be something that can work. And if at that point the Highway Authority says this is not going to work. We reject it. It's my client's funeral, isn't it? Because there's a gramping condition which says no development until this is done.
Yeah, that's correct.
So, final question, really, just an overarching question. You do not actually provide any evidence at all, do you, to demonstrate to the inspector that this development would have an unacceptable impact on safety or an unacceptable impact on congestion?
No, we don't. But the evidence we have provided shows that, or at least we argue that you haven't demonstrated, or the appellant hasn't demonstrated that there isn't a severe impact because of the deficiencies in the modelling approach.
Right. No, I understand that. And the counter to that, of course, is that we've certainly demonstrated to the satisfaction of the local highway authority. Mr. Hegarty came in, reviewed it, decided he didn't want to run any of these arguments, so we've obviously demonstrated it to his satisfaction. And the third point is the reason why you say we haven't demonstrated this is the points that we've gone through, aren't they?
Yes, yeah, several points that we've gone through. Yeah.
To be fair to you, I haven't asked you detailed questions about modelling, etc., because there's only so much time we can spend on this, and but we have provided an answer to you in our rebuttal. Whether you agree with it or not is another matter, but we've given you an answer, haven't we?
You'll have to direct me to which
No,
parts you're talking
in
about.
Mr. Frisbee's rebuttal, he covers the issue of modelling and what we modelled and why we modelled it and why we didn't model anything different.
Yes, he did. Yes,
That's right. And your counsel will have the opportunity to cross-examine him about that, won't he? Yes. Well, thank you very much, Ms. Hayder. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Ma'am.
I've got a few questions, just matters of clarification. So at the start, you talked about the 800 meters in terms of accessibility. Could you just point me to where the guidance is? Are there CD numbers, or is it in your appendices?
It was in the separate appendices.
Okay.
The
The
addendum. Yeah, sorry. Appendix 1 and Appendix 2.
Okay. And the photographs that you had mentioned at the beginning, they're AM and PM peak times. What were the times?
I'll have to double check. There is a timestamp on the photos. It's probably a little bit faded, but you can see the exact time that each of those photos is taken.
Oh, I see. Okay, I see them now. Yeah, okay.
Madam, on the first of your requests, just to close out that reference for you, that was table 3.3, which is PDF page 6 of that addendum document.
Thank you. And you talked about in your rebuttal the para 2.26 and the comparison between the two surveys. It's just a question about, just to clarify, it was the week after Easter, so was that the 6th to the 10th of April that the survey was done?
14th to the 20th.
14th to 20th, okay.
And that's mentioned in paragraph 2.25 of my rebuttal.
Ah, okay. And finally, apologies if I didn't quite catch your answer. When you're talking about the visibility displays from the proposed access, in your opinion, is the space available to be provided, that for adequate visibility space to be provided?
So it hasn't been demonstrated, but I don't think the 215 meters can be achieved
Okay.
to the south, mainly due to the sort of topography and the dips and elevation changes. So there, when you look at visibility display, you look at it in a sort of horizontal component and a vertical component, and it's difficult to assess whether it can be done in the horizontal alignment, but in the vertical, it does look very challenging.
Thank you. That was all the questions I had.
Okay, thank you, Mark.
Yeah. Would you like to proceed with your re-examination, please?
Yes, it'll be very short. Let's first turn to CD 8.54.
Yes, got that.
Typical. It's the one I haven't downloaded and it's not opening up. Can somebody get me a hard copy or something, please?
It's 8.54. That's the place and movement planning and design guidance for Hertfordshire
you.
County
Yeah.
Council.
Yes,
Yes.
that's the one.
Thank you. Yes.
I think I can lead on this. This is a document produced by the county council. If we could turn to PDF page 360.
360.
Yes, that's, but for your own, yeah, I don't think you have page numbers. It's going to be part 4, chapter 2, page 7. Title, the chapter 2 is designing for walking. It's near the end of the document. Yes. PDF page. I'm going to PDF page 360. And yeah, for yourself, Mom, it's
Sorry, part 2.
So yeah, chapter 2. So it's part 4,
Right.
which I think is actually the entire document. Yeah, chapter 2 is right at the end.
Okay, yeah.
And there's a section after that, there's an introductory page. Then the page after that is what we're looking at, is PDF page 360. You can see on the left there, it says introduction.
Yeah.
And on the right there, Mr. Haley, you see it says design standards.
Yeah.
Yes, I see that.
Mr. Haley, is the inclusive mobility guide mentioned there in that Hertfordshire document?
It is, yes. And it states the design standards used throughout this guidance to support walking are derived from the following documents, of which the DFT inclusive mobility document is one of them.
Thank you. You remember the line of questioning you would take to us to the applicability of LTN 120 to existing cycle networks. So in light of the evidence you've given, why do you say the inspector's right to consider what's in LTN 120 when assessing the suitability of these proposed cycle routes?
Well, it comes down partly to the vision and the overall overarching policy to encourage walking and, well, sorry, cycling in this case. And LTM 120 is clear that its purpose is to encourage cycling and to ensure that there are attractive cycling routes and infrastructure. And so that guidance is there to direct practitioners and designers to achieve attractive cycle routes.
And my final question, you remember the line of questioning you've taken to regarding the preliminary design, and the lack of a road safety audit is your point really. And what do you say is the purpose of including a preliminary design within an application?
It goes a bit beyond proof of principle to understand whether a design can be achieved. It should be, I understand that detailed design will take it to the next level, and at that point you will look at materials and levels and other aspects, but the actual layout should be, I'd say, pretty much determined there or thereabouts in the preliminary design. And at this present time, that the preliminary layout doesn't provide that certainty for that puffing crossing.
Nothing further from me, Mr. Hayder.
Okay, thank you. Oh, excuse me. It's 12:21. We will have a lunch adjournment for 1 hour. So the inquiry will resume at 1:20. Thank you.
You should see it right above it. Yeah, it's on the same page. It's fine. Okay, I need to think about my cross-examination now, having heard that. So I think I want to stay with Cameron, possibly.
Yeah, I'll go there.